Today I'm going to use some old-fashioned 1970s sci-fi movie magic to kit bash a racing spaceship from 3 different model airplanes for a devil-may-care Star Bray. It's time for Aaron Does It Wrong in support of Casey Hudson and WorldWorkings.com. My first decision is which airplane fuselage will be the best for my spaceship fuselage. I think the gray one is the best for this. It's the scale that I want to display this model in, and it's the correct shape. I remove it from the sprue and glue it together. It's too long, so I'll cut the tail from the back. This is an old saw blade from my hacksaw. It cuts through the plastic easily. I didn't quite get this cut as even as I wanted, so I'll smooth it out with sandpaper. Then I'll assemble the wings from the B-24, the only model that I remember the name of. This is where I want to cut it to attach the wings to the fuselage, so I'll mark this with a silver marker, leaving plenty of room in case I make a mistake. This will be an exercise in sizing and trimming the wing until it fits onto the fuselage as well as possible. I'll trim it with a hobby knife and test fit until I'm happy. Then I can give it a final sanding until it fits perfectly onto the fuselage. I need to have the end of the wing be the same angle as the connection point. Anything can be a straight edge as long as it's straight and has an edge, so I'll use my saw blade as a straight edge and mark where I should cut it. I decided to try to make these cuts with my Dremel. Maybe don't try this at home, it looks pretty dangerous. And I'll smooth it out with my hobby knife. Then I can use discarded scraps from the first wing as a template for the second wing. Next I need to decide which airplane fuselage to use as my primary escape velocity thruster. I think the B-24 fuselage is too big, so I'll use the white model kit, so I remove it from the sprue. With both wings cut, I can decide the angle I want to attach the wings to the fuselage, and I glue them both to the fuselage. With my wings attached, I can decide exactly where to place the main escape velocity thruster. I removed the tail section from this piece because it will be in the way when I try to fix it into place, and the thruster assembly isn't going to have a tail. This will be a wing brace that will attach the escape velocity thruster to the wing section. I'll eyeball approximately where I think this cut will need to be, and then I cut this brace using my saw blade. Then I will glue my wing braces onto my thruster assembly. There will be a lot of trial and error as I position this and make adjusting cuts until I'm happy with the position of the thruster assembly. The wing braces are too long as I originally cut them, so I'll cut them down again and fit and cut until I'm happy using my Dremel. Once again, probably don't try this at home. This looks even more dangerous than the last time. And then there's another round to position and trim until it fits where I want it. Finally, I can glue my thruster assembly onto the wings. This will also help provide some structure to the wings and let me place the model on my work table and not worry about breaking the wings off. So I have this large hole in the bottom of the fuselage that I should have filled before I attached the wings. Fortunately, I can just create the shape of this hole with paper and slide it into place, and sand it so that it fits without seams. There are still plenty of gaps in this model, so I will use clay to fill in the first round of them. I use my fingers as a general filler and clean the edges with my sculpting tool. Then I decided that rather than fill these gaps with clay, I wanted 2 small rudders above the wing struts. I can just use the end of the B-24 wing that I've used for all of the wing sections so far. I think this is approximately the size that will look best on the model, so I will determine where to trim them so that they will fit best. Then it's a matter of another process of fit and trim until they fit above the wing struts. Then I can fill more gaps with modeling clay. Most of you will have forgotten about this tube or not seen it before. It's a piece of the lamp from the Pongo Bell character build, but this will be the exhaust thruster for the atmospheric engine. This style of racing involves both racing in space and diving towards planets to race with an atmosphere. This is that engine. Magically, it seems to fit seamlessly into the fuselage, and I can use these pieces from my bits box to make it look a little cooler. My third engine set is for flying through space. These are made from an old set of wireless earphones with a great design shape. I just glued these to the end of the wings, and now I have a racing ship with 3 engine styles. This spaceship has a swing wing design where the wings are extended while in atmosphere and can fold nearer the fuselage as it falls through the atmosphere into the gravity well. I don't have the skill to fabricate this on the model, so I'll model them in the extended position. To position them, I cut a small section out of the wing where these new wings will be positioned. Then I put them into place inside these small removed sections. I rounded out these wings using scissors. If you don't feel comfortable using a Dremel, this is a great way to cut the model part safely. Now I'm in my third round of filling gaps with clay. I suggest using an oil-based non-baking clay for this. The thrust nozzle for my escape velocity thruster will be made from a Play-Doh canister. I still have lots of these from when I was using Play-Doh for everything. I just need to cut the bottom off of it and it will easily fit. I've used these freezer pop molds for many of the engines, so I removed the top of this one, then decided I didn't like it and cut it in half, so I glued it back together, and glued the thruster onto it. To attach the nozzle of the engine body, I'll fill the connection point with clay and then glue it onto place on the escape velocity thruster. Using the clay that I already attached, I just smooth the clay onto the body of the escape velocity engine to eliminate the gaps and make the thruster seamless. This would be a boring thruster nozzle if it was just a Play-Doh canister, so I modeled some rib-like structures onto the nozzle to give it some detail. Though I'm not going to do much, it will be painted black and not be the focus of the model. I had to find a way to use wood glue, so I'll cover my clay with it to act like a bit of a shell around the clay. This is the canopy that came with the original model. I glued it approximately in the original position, but then I covered it in clay to look like an extension of the atmospheric engine cover. I want to keep as much of the original model detail as possible, so I made sure to clean the clay from the details. This is the air intake used when the race ship is flying in atmosphere. I got to use my clay removal tool to make it look like an air intake port. This is the cockpit where the pilot sits. Remember, the pilot is approximately the size of your fist, flying a vehicle that is the length of a subway train. Now begins the engreblining process. Since these models already come with plenty of molded detail, these greeblies will mostly just cover holes in the model. Plus, more greeblies give the model more personality. With a gray primer coat, I'll give the entire race ship a coat of white paint. Then I will sketch out the design of the livery, trying to match the design on both sides of the ship. Tadara Brae as a species are the fastest biological flyers in the known galaxy, and they design their race ships to resemble their biology. In this case, the livery is also designed to resemble the extended wings of a flying Tadara Brae, but it also has flames painted on the escape velocity engine to give it more power and speed. If you watch my old Tadara Brae species design video, you can see how the ships resemble the character wings. I wanted this livery to be colorful so that it would pop and be visible as it flies through space, so I'll give it two bright colors. This is the gravitational sensor that all Tadara Brae spaceship use for navigation. As promised, I painted my engine in the standard black. The livery didn't look as crisp as I wanted, so I decided to outline the colored patches. I tried using a marker, but the paint destroyed the markers, so I just used a mechanical pencil. And I'll cover all my mistakes with some extra paint to make it cleaner. The final engine section is painted white, and then I wet blended yellow and red. I haven't decided if I'm trying to mimic flame with this or if this is a critical part of the engine that uses thrust. Let me know if there are other franchises that have odd engine components. I had always wanted the atmospheric engine thruster section to be metallic covered, so I broke out the old metallic watercolors. The large main thrust is a copper color, while the two smaller exhaust sections are a gold color. Race cars need sponsorships, and this race ship is no different, so I used the decals from the models so that I didn't have to try to freehand a language and make it look even on both sides of the ship. Fortunately, one of the models had letters that were meant to wrap around wings, so I could use these to look like the different language for my sponsorships. I also used the different image decals from the models. They're small enough that you won't be able to see what the image is, but it will look like a sponsor logo when I use it. Now the only real challenge is to make sure the logos look the same on both sides of the craft. This will represent an electronics and refueling panel. One final sponsorship on the top of the wing, and I can attach the number to the front of the race ship. All of the edges get a white dry brush highlight to pick up the corners and molded model details. I bent these old guitar strings into shape to attach to this greebly in the engine because I think it looks cool. With that, I present the Space Diver, also known as the Ryace Racer. It has one engine for atmospheric flight, one engine to escape a gravity well, and two engines on the end of the wing for space flight, as well as several dozen thrusters for navigation in space. The shape of the ship is styled after Tadara Brae physiology. To protect from atmospheric friction as it drops into the atmosphere of a gravity well, it has variable geometry wings and plunges into the atmosphere ventral side down to protect the pilot and the less shielded parts of the racecraft. It has protective shields against radiation from low planetary orbit, charged particles, and solar storms. It has a reactionary control system to optimize performance. Thank you for watching, and please support Casey at worldworkings.com. You can also find her on Patreon. This has been Aaron Does It Wrong.